Welcome to Watercolor Wednesday at Church of the Palms in Sarasota, Florida. I am Kathy Futrell, and today we're going to be working with koi fish and water lilies. This is a compositional issue. Now, these are two examples of what I'm going to be doing. However, neither one are what we'll end up with. This is an acrylic painting. This is the watercolor work, and we are going to have references for the koi fish and the water lilies and surface reflections. So multiple issues, we'll have fun. All right, so what we're going to do today is I have some reference photographs. I hope everybody can see these on the camera right now. And we have a water lily with the blooming flower, the lilies. I'm actually not going to put this puddle of water in my sketch. And I have fish. These koi fish were shot at beautiful Selby Gardens here in Sarasota, and the arrangement of these fish are inspirational to me. I've also made a couple of sketches that might be good references for you. You could almost cut out these shapes and play with them on your paper if you wanted to, but let's start here. I'm going to be talking about designing your paper, and I'm going to begin with the oh, that's lovely. Thank you. I'm going to begin with a pencil sketch of the lily. And this way I have kind of placed my focal point off center from the paper. But the fish also are going to create part of that compositional design as well. And here I am using as my reference this particular photograph, so let me bring this back so that you can see it as well. So the water lily is popping up out of the water. We're almost looking down, our perspective is looking down on this pond, and we are thinking about, and I don't think I put every one of the petals in, but you see I was inspired by this particular flower. Okay, and then I'm going to place the water lilies, but keeping in mind that I have to leave room for my fish. All right, so I'm going to keep this water lily and the veins of the water lily. And can everybody see these pencil lines, or am I too light? I'm trying to keep these light. Should I go a little darker so you can see? Okay, good. The edges are going to waffle, and here's where I'm going to be masking some of that. I'm going to want to keep the whites. So you can see white areas like this, and these little spots here, there's some whites. I probably can keep the whites there. Let me get the other lily. I kind of just picked this part to draw rather than getting complicated here. You can make your own composition, and that's what I want you to think about today, is the positive and negative space. I connected these two shapes, but I'm going to have my other water lily down here so that I have room for at least two of the fish. So in other words, I'm ending up with the idea of 5 shapes. So 2 water lilies, 1 flower, and 2 koi fish. Here I'm suggesting the veins, and I might bring that up a little higher. I feel like, well, let me get the fish in. Let me put my koi fish in. I'm going to dance them through here. So I have already actually sketched this. And what I've done in this particular one, I put 1 fish going this way and 1 fish coming this way. And I've already used my masking pen on this one, so I don't have to sit and let this dry. But let me get this to the point so I can explain how I stop or block out the whites. So here I'm going to look at this fish for the space here. Now I'm just going to start with the idea, kind of a gesture. Let me see. Okay, so I've got a shape. This is very abstract, but I'm going to adjust this to make it look like a fish. And then I like this fish. So I'm going to let this fish kind of run off the page and come right into this space.
A little darker.
I need to go, okay, good, I will. And I think I have to let this fish really go off the page here. So it's the character that I need to establish how this fish really looks, and it has some, are these called, I guess these are called fins. There's a top fin, and then there's another fin here, and this one that will help if you overlap so that this lily is on top of that fin. Now that I think is going to work. There's going to be some patterns that I deal with, but very important is the flow. Now, I need to correct this flow, and let's see, I'm back to sketching this fish, and they're kind of looking, they're looking at each other. They're meeting beside of the water lilies. It's a little rendezvous. The koi fish party. Okay, and this one's got a very long tail. And I'll connect this one with that lily. Now, a lot of my designing is going to be with water, kind of the water ripples. So I'm going to suggest what I see. Now, there's also some dark reflections. I'm not really going to do a lot of that, but I do want to maybe examine where I see movement. Okay, I made a few pencil marks. So those are the places that I'm going to use my masking pen. Now, this is a fine line masking pen, and it does what masking tape does or other kinds of liquid latex, which can be applied, allowed to dry, and then later removed after you have finished your painting. You see how this kind of, I think you can see this, you see how this flows around the edge where I want to keep the whites. It's okay to have more white applied than you actually need. So I'm doing a little dragging here, like if you had a paintbrush, just to bring those little light places that I see. You see how right here I have stronger lights coming in. So that could happen with a lot of these, and if I think I have too much light, I could just paint over them. All right, so let's pretend that I have done the edges, that I have pulled in the veins of the water lilies, and I'm going to show you what I do with a fish. Obviously, I don't have to do much with this flower, but I do see a lot of light right here. So maybe if I add that now, I'll not forget to keep a few light places on this beautiful pink flower that's going to be there. The fish I'm going to make, well, I'm not sure till I get there. I think I'm going to keep them kind of orange, typically as koi fish are, but I chose to put in some patterns when I was doing my first painting, and I tried to make those patterns look like fish. You call those scales? Are they called scales? Mm-hmm. Fish scales? Okay. And then the lines within the fins. So that takes a little bit of effort to make these lines. So you see how handy having something like this. The only problem with using this resist is that you do have to quickly, after you've done that, put the lid back on. And this is my challenge, is to get that to stick back in. If your fine line gets stopped up at any point, I've discovered that using this florist wire will help to unstop it. As inside here, and sometimes I just order refills, but if you take the cap off, here you can see you could jab it in here, and I've got a little bubble there. Sometimes that just hardens on you. You see how rubbery it looks right here. Just do not leave the lid off any longer than you have to. And keep it in out of the sun and in a safe place. All right, so this takes maybe 10 minutes to dry, so that's why I have this one already done, and I'm going to start painting. I want to do a lot of blue for the water, and that is where I'm going to begin. So quickly, let's see, you can see my palette, everyone, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm just adding quickly a little water on each of my colors because I'll end up using maybe 6 or 7 different colors today. And obviously my palette has been in use, so but I haven't painted in 2 days. Where's my flat? Oh, I didn't bring my other little flat. Okay, I'll just use the round. Usually,
You want a half-inch flat?
I would love a half-inch flat. Oh, bless your heart. For some reason, I must have traveled with it and just didn't stick it back in here. Bless your heart, Paula. Thank you so much. Okay, I love using the flat because it allows for quick application to the areas I want to do blue. Now, I don't have to worry about all the white reflections. I can go right over that. And I'm going to do everything but the flower and the water lilies. Excuse me. Yes, did I say that right? I did. Okay, because they're sitting on top of the water. And I'm going to paint the fish and the water almost at the same time because they're going to be a little blurry. The edges around them are not going to have to be defined like the surface shapes, like the flower and the water lilies. So here I go, and this takes a little bit of patience. Go over your fish, go over the water, but avoid painting on top, or rather avoid adding the water because we're going to do a wet and wet approach. Okay, so all of this gets done. Thank you, Paula, for the loan of your flat brush. I always keep my flat brush with me, so I don't know where it is. Somewhere sitting out where I just didn't see it. So my point is using a flat brush. You know, if I were doing this as a big painting, and I did for my larger fish, I would just wet the whole thing like this. This is called a Skyflow 2-inch brush. I love using my Skyflow. But this little sample requires a smaller flat brush. Now, if I haven't missed a spot, which I think I have right here. Nope, you know, I can't do that. That's on top of the water lily. Let's see. Okay, I got in here, I got in here, I think I got in here. All right, I'm ready now to paint the blue and the fish. So this is my cobalt, and I'm gonna use a little cerulean, and I'm just gonna make a puddle out here, various blues, so that I can have fun with color. And there's almost a little aqua that I can see in here. So maybe I take a little bit of the green and cerulean and create kind of an aqua. Let's get some more of that cobalt. All right, I'm ready to begin the water. And you know, this is almost a purple, isn't it? Ooh, something tells me, oh, go ahead and put a little purple in. Why not? That's gorgeous. I'm moving that right up to, now I'll tell you another thing that helps. If you outline your shapes, such as the water lilies, then you can pop this in pretty quickly because the paint will stop at the edge of your masking. You can see the masking showing up, and this will stay on until this painting is dry, until it's completely dry. Now I'm only going to paint the water variations of color here. And I'm going to go right up to my fish shapes. And always, if you go on one side of the fish with one color, don't switch abruptly. Keep the green on both sides of that tail. It's the dog going around the tree. Okay, so then we just keep moving some color through here. It can get lighter and darker. This is going to have a bit of a shadow. I forgot to put that in. So maybe I'll come up with a way to deal with that later. Let's try some more green over here. And this flower is going right into the water. It should be darker there. And the water lily, I'm going to just move that around. So now we're kind of creating the background for this painting. This is, this will dry lighter. So I'm thinking, come on, I need to put a little more dark in here. So I'm picking up a little more of that cerulean blue. And because you know whenever you paint on top of water anyway, it's going to lighten. Okay, let me get back to a little purple here. So I repeat what I had up there. Whoops, not quite that strong. Go back to a little more cerulean. And maybe with my brush strokes, it would be a good idea to complement the movement. You see what I just did there? That should help, that should definitely help the feeling in this painting, this movement, okay? Yeah, I kind of like that. Now, this has to dry. So what we're going to do is we'll stop and let this dry. Oh, wait, the fish. Yeah, we're going to stop after we do the fish and let this dry. And everybody's going to work on their painting a little bit and then come back. We will do the last half. I'm going to just put in quickly the orange for the fish as a color. And I'm mixing this bright orange I happen to have here, but if you don't have an orange, go with your yellow and red. And we're going to let all of this dry and then come back. Okay.
Kathy, the fish, is that wet?
I wet everything except, I did, I wet that. So they're going to kind of run and be ghosty, but we're going to define a little bit more when we take the masking pins off. Okay. Okay, so now we've had a chance. Actually, I let this dry. What was it, about 30 minutes? We let this 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Okay. So I had my masking pen already dry before I started doing the washes around everything. So the next step is to paint these other things, put a little more color in my fish. I still have a few wet spots maybe, but it's dry enough for me to go next. All right, so I'm using another little round brush. Oh, Paula, I still have your flat. I promise to return it. Do you need it yet? Okay. Oh, yes. Don't forget, when you're doing your masking pen, when you mask out, do the ripples around in the current, around the fish, and also across the body of the fish. I think when I finish this, you'll see it more clearly. Now, since I still have this puddle of orange, let me go ahead and put a little more detail into my fish. I do want some shadows. Look at here. I'm going to pick up a little of that purple that's sitting right there and deal with the shape of the fish and rounding it up, rounding this fish to look a little more three-dimensional. It has eyes that are on the side of the head and a little bit of a mouth here, with the body that has the fin. Sometimes a few lines in here will help to define what's going on. I can even do a little rounding here where the scales are and the fishtail. We get a little brighter orange back into this fish. And voila, I keep the top of the fish very light. It is closer to the water surface. You know, I'm wondering, looking at my reference, I really had other colors in this fish, and this was kind of white. I'm wondering if I should try a little color, maybe a bit of the turquoise. I hadn't planned to do that, but now I'm thinking, why not? Just for fun. All right, so that has some color now. I think I like that better. All right, so this fish, let me soften up this line a little bit. And I'll take a little off so that's not too hard. I wanted to keep the rib of the top of that very light. Okay, I just threw a little more dark on that. And let's do the same over here. Using my orange for the fish. And don't forget just to look at your fish so that, here, I'm turning him sideways so I can see him a little better. I will, this is a different one, but he's very bright. Since he's so bright, let me throw a little red into this one. Ooh, I like that. And put some red across his nose. and maybe put it in a ripply effect. If I don't like that, I'll change it, but maybe I like that. When I take the masking pen out, I should be able to see more patterning. And let's soften up the middle of that. And this tail, I'll extend some of the orange into that tail and some orange into the fin off the two sides, and a little more red. Gosh, I want to brighten that and darken it too. And same with the body as it goes into the water. Okay, this is going, this fin is actually going underneath that water lily. Now, my plan next is to do the water lily, and in the photograph that I have, it's kind of a blue-purple, but I'm going to go with my greens. I'm going to change those to a brighter green, and I'm going to use Paula's flat brush because it goes faster. And so here we go. The petal itself is going to have some various shades. I'll paint around this lovely pink flower, and this can go. Always do your contour painting in the direction that, I need a little dark here. So I'm mixing some of my Viridian green. Always touch a little bit of purple will give me my darks. While this is still wet, and right underneath this flower, and it goes here as well. I'll let this be a bit of a shadow. And I just will suggest some darks coming in. And I like that. What I'm trying to say is always paint in the direction of your lines. In other words, you're not just painting like this, flat. You're moving your brush toward, to show the veins. Now, because this is kind of wet, it's just going to be a lot softer than it looks right now. And I can, as I'm watching this, if I say, oh, I wish I hadn't made it quite that heavy there, I can bring that out. All right, do the same thing over here. Let's just do our brush in the direction of those veins. I've got a little dry brush here. I kind of like that. Maybe I need to leave some of that dry brush. But I do want these to look like they're the same kind of water lily, so I'm going to darken in a few places without losing all my dry brush. And it may need another bit of color, but I'm going to go with that. All right, I left some whites, and I think I like that. Maybe I'll go a little darker just right there. Okay, and then again, maybe I'll get rid of some of those whites. Why do I always say, oh, I like that, and then get rid of it? Okay, I don't know. You have to go on instinct sometimes. So I sort of like that one better, and I'm wondering, do I need to put more darks over there? What's your vote?
I think they both look great.
You think? Do you think though I should go a little darker over here?
Just a little bit.
Okay,
Yes.
just a little bit. Okay, good. I don't know that I don't really need them to match, but sometimes it just for design purposes, you just say, oh yeah, I should have gone a little darker. Maybe, and just don't get too dark. Okay. Well, I think I do like that better. Okay, good. Thank you for that. Now, I should probably clean my water, but I'm not going to worry about it because it's not going to be a problem, I promise. Okay, so I'm going to jump in and do the flower. Okay? Now, the flower is a lovely pink. So I'm going to use my magenta. See this pink? If I had some opera, I would probably stick my opera out to do this flower. Oh, Faith, you are a sweetheart. Now I have clean water. I hardly know what to do with clean water, you know.
You want opera?
No, I'm really going to make it work with my magenta, and it will. So, see this beautiful color, and opera sings a little louder. So, oh, that's sweet of you to do that. Thank you so much. Now, because my petals, and I tend to paint these all separately so that they are distinct. In other words, if I need to get some light and dark, I had a little drop right there. Look how lovely that was. And just sometimes what I'll do is I'll put in a few, then I might take a brush It's always handy to have more brushes sitting there than you need. And then just add water to extend the color or to get a little variation. So right here, I'm bringing that down into this little black center, which I'll add later. And this petal that's coming out here, I'll just use the water on the two ends and then add the pink and let it kind of run. Again, I believe in painting that contour with what this is doing. Now remember, I did actually stick a little masking pen right here where that's got a light spot. And this, oh, and I forgot, this is a little wet, so I need to not touch that. So the problem with watercolor is that you do have to let areas dry before you bump into it. I did okay right there. This is going to be a darker color. So maybe I will have a little purple put right into my pink and move that into a shadow place here so that I have lots of color. Even though this is a solid pink, it has darks and it has lights. I'm going to put the darker coming in here. I'm going to let this one that's back behind be a little darker. And maybe the edge here. Now quickly use the water on this brush to soften that shadow edge. And this does have some dark in it, but make sure I don't need any more darks anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and darken that up. Yeah, matter of fact, I think that needs to be dark all the way through, and I'll just add water on the end of it. Because as things come out to the edge, in this case, this has a lot of light right there. Okay. Now, this one, I need to go back to my pink, my magenta, rather, and that's still wet. I'll just put this one in. I referenced by looking back at the photo, and I have some lights on the tips of those. So maybe these next few, I'll put in my magenta, and then I will try to add water on the tips. And I don't really need a whole lot of white showing, but every now and then you have some light white showing. I think I'll get rid of that one. Just bring that down. And I think I want to put a little more dark right here. And I want a little more dark right here. And then I'll add my white, or my water. My water will simply soften that edge, that spot, this edge, and this. Now I might come back and touch that up because I think it's going to need a few more darks for shadows. This needs a little more softening. And yes, I do think it needs some darks in a few places, but honestly, I will be better off to watch me. I'm going to keep doing it anyway. Okay, stop. Okay, so I do want to come back. Maybe when I'm doing this dark spot, I'll add some more there. All right, so the truth is I've got to do a little more detail, and then I'm going to stop. And when I let this dry, next step will be in maybe 10 or 15 minutes, I might as well do this little stem real quick. And I'm going to use the brown and the purple on it. Ooh, that's a nice color. I also think that I could get away with doing a little bit of a shadow here sorry, I thought I was done. A little bit of a shadow for this flower. That way now, it's going to probably need to come across here. Okay, this should be a different edge, and then this should be a different edge because that's a change in the surface. And I'm just going to leave it a little ambiguous, and also put in some ripples, because if there are ripples in the water, this reflection is not going to be a perfect shape, it's going to have some ripples, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So now I'm thinking, wow, that's unusual. When I paint, I sometimes don't think. All right, so well, I'm kind of liking that because it would be that way. Now, I said that I need to let this dry. I'm thinking a little more detail here and here. And when everything is dry, then I will come back and take the the resist out. And when I take the resist out, I'll be able to do more detail all the way around. Okay, so let's get the second step going after the masking pen is dry. The last stage, once everything has dried, is to remove your, and this by the way, I've used this a lot. This is well, you also use your finger, it comes up. But this is what we're going to do now, is remove all of the masking fluid off of your painting, and voila, you're going to have the white that you need to keep. And then you're also going to see where you need to darken or cover up. This is, bless Jim's heart, when I do a whole lot of paintings at one time, I say, honey, and he does this for me. Don't you, Jim? He just loves this task.
He didn't jump up right now, though.
He did not. I was making a really strong hint, but it didn't work. Okay, so this just, it wears your arm out, to be honest, and especially if you've got a big painting and you've done a lot of this. But what a great trick.
Especially if it's cooked in your car.
Thank you for reminding me. Do not, when you use the masking pen, and my label came off the other day when I was using it, it's called a fine line, somebody have the name written down, fine line masking fluid. Yeah. Do not leave this in the car, do not put your painting in the car that has all the masking fluid on it, because the heat will set it. When someone asks about trying to dry the painting by using a hairdryer, well, I never use a hairdryer anyway because I don't want to push the paint around, but the worst thing you can do with a masking pen is to set it with heat. So, yeah, it's just,
never come off.
no. Well, it will come off
The paper.
if you have, I'm rubbing that way too hard right there. I'm going to have to do a touch-up. All right, so here, okay, checking. I wonder if that's my acrylic paper, or it feels flat, doesn't have the same texture. Okay, but you just rub your hand across and you say, okay, there's another little spot I missed. Now you can see where all your whites are. And the next step will be to fine tune your painting, to really bring it to life. And obviously my first step is going to be to touch up the water. Now, some people think that once you remove the masking pen that you're all done, but that's not the case at all. Because sometimes what you want to do is to flow color right over your, let me just show you what I mean. You still have a sense of that flow, but we don't want to cover it all up, but what we want to do is bring out some contrast. So I'm putting in dark to really accentuate my, and I will go over a lot of this, the shadows that are here, and I will paint some more ripples in the water and bring out these shapes. I think that layering is very important in the watercolor process and defining things. Just right now, I could probably spend another 40 minutes just doing this. I'm not going to quite finish, but you will see, these are ripples here. They're not part of the fin. So I also talk to myself like, okay, what was this supposed to be? I want color. I want some greens and some purples and some blues. I want some watercolor. Color of water. I want to feel like there's some reflections going on the surface, and the beauty of really having wiggle water is to say that there is reflection, and reflection can be in light, and it can be in reflection in tree things that are going on above that are being reflected in the water. Think of Monet's water lilies that he did in Giverny, and how the paintings really do come to life because you can see reflected through the water. And I'll just make one little reflection right here, as if there was a tree that was reflected in the water, like the trunk of a tree. It could be as simple as doing this with your water, and that tree trunk really would be more of a blue-brown, or it wouldn't really be green necessarily. It would be a gray, a dark, something with blue and brown and green in it, something that mixes with the water. Now, I still want to darken these shapes that are coming around this fish, this koi, and define what happened here. I rubbed too hard, so I want to bring out that fish shape. I do want to soften some of this with just some nice wiggles of water. But you can see that just by darkening the water and making your painting bolder and accentuating some of the water movements across the fish body. I'm also trying to really help this flower pop by getting darker around it and not losing all of my whites. This might be a little heavy right there, so I think what I want to do is soften that, put some water on it, maybe lift. Just, yeah, a little fuzzy is better. And defining here more. Really like that. Is that it just needs the water movement. And I'm going to also pick up the shape of this dark in here, because that was kind of a black center on this flower. And it has a fuzzy little look to it. So I think that helps to define the center of that flower a little bit better. Okay, and the stem has this, it is darker as it goes there with a bit of a shadow on this side. And I'll just take the water and bring it out. I had put a little masky pen there, and I want to show it going into the water here, maybe a few ripples on that edge, and the continuity of having the flow here and continuing on this side. I've got a lot of movement going on in this painting, and this is a very fun kind of painting to do, but it gets a little intimidating when you're trying to know what is going on, especially when you have a reference that shows a lot of dark and a lot of light. This is the sky reflected, but this is landscape. So that's why I know I can put in some darks, because it is the reflection of, say, the tree. Or maybe, you know, I could do another one coming down here and just let it finish here. Or I can let it just be patchy. I'll just not finish all of this, but let me just suggest that the wiggles that I have, if I like them, I'm going to leave them. But if I feel like I need to take some out, I wonder what this is. Was that a fin that I forgot to paint? I think it is. I'll put some blue lines in the fin as well, and this one, and this one. And I'm going to do some darker dots. Sometimes, have you noticed I don't finish my thought because then I have another thought? I just was trying to remember what my thought was. So the eyes, sometimes it helps just to put a hint about where the eyes would be. I don't know, I want my fish to be have personality. And I also love the movement that's going on around them. And I'm just keep looking at what could I do to make this fish show up a little bit more. And I also want to think about the water. When I paint water, I am very aware that water can form these lovely shapes. And not just with the reflection, but just with the movement of the water. I don't want to leave anything out when it comes to extending that motion, so that feels right, and this feels okay, but this feels really right. So I just keep doing that. Now my flower needs more color. My flower really needs a little more popping. To me, it feels a bit flat, and so I hope that that's a little too much pop. I do want to get that second coat on to feel like this is a little more finished, and maybe just a little bit more in here. Soften that up. Yes. And get some more color. This is a little heavy right there. That's a little better. Thank goodness for paper towels. Oh, now I didn't want that to be pure white, so I had pulled the masking pen off of that. And a little more, just a touch more linear feeling through the veins of these right here, and I guess I'll live with that. How about the koi fish? Well, we had made these patterns. I'm going to take a little bit of this Aurelian yellow with the orange. I want to make a little brighter. I think somebody contaminated my yellow with some green. I don't know who that could be, probably me. And a little bit of that orange. Whoop, that is bright. There. I wanted a little more sunshine. And I don't want those to be white. I think I want them to be a softer color, and so they still read as the texture, but not quite so jumping out. Not quite that bright. So I'll do the same thing here. Oh, I do like the yellow. It does glow. And then these, the orange with a touch of the red can be applied again and to the face as a little bit more reflection with the tail. I think I've just made a split tail for that one. And this was a fin here. I feel like the fish are a little more lively now, and the water's a little more lively. And if I want to soften up my greens, I can just do a little bit more touch up here. And I don't want to lose all of my whites, but a little bit of this can be softened. There. And voila, I think I'm almost done. I might end up going home and putting a little more reflection in the water, but I believe that this is the koi fish composition with water lilies and ripples in the water. Thank you all for coming, by the way.
Thank you.